from, what was it, Smoking the Bandit?
There you go.
The sheriff and his son, all right?
Gun control is just another phrase for victim disarmament. Nikki became a Second Amendment activist and victims' right advocate after the brutal murder of her husband, Ben, by a man that had been stalking her. We're going to talk to her next.
So, folks, clean, lube, and protect your guns faster and easier with Seal One. Seal One CLP Plus is also natural, non-toxic, and environmentally friendly. Are you tired of smelling like a gas station after cleaning your gun? Well, try Seal One. Ask for it by name at your local gun shop, and if they don't have it, ask them to get it. Clean your guns faster and better with Seal One.
Okay, the executive director of the Crime Prevention Research Center, which is someone that another person you've all heard of, who heads up one of the other people involved, I should say, in the Crime Prevention Research Center is John Lott, who's done a ton of research when it comes to gun issues and that sort of thing. But we're going to talk to the executive director, Nikki Goeser. Nikki, are you there?
Yes. Hi there. Is this Michael?
Yes, ma'am. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on. Nice to talk to you.
Nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Very much appreciated. Why don't we just start with talk a little bit about the Crime Prevention Research Center.
Sure. The Crime Prevention Research Center, it's a tongue twister, I know. We are a nonprofit organization. We look at changes in laws across the nation and how they impact crime rates, in particular gun laws. But you can visit our website. It is crimeresearch.org.
And I think one of the most, I think probably the broadest thing that's come of John Lott's research that people are most surprised by, or maybe had the biggest impact, is the concept that, more guns, less crime. Wouldn't you say? I mean, that's a pretty big, maybe it's counterintuitive to a lot of people at first glance, but it's definitely, I think it's kind of its biggest mark. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, we have found time and time again that those places that have more freedom, where more law-abiding people, good people, can carry in more places, you see a drop in crime. Bad guys, they are not stupid. They can be very smart. And bad guys don't want to be confronted by someone who they perceive to be a victim, but that victim has a way to stop them.
Wow. So as the executive director of the organization, like what are some of your duties? What are you attempting to do for the organization?
Oh gosh, I do a little bit of everything. I help manage the website, our database, correspondence, emails, phone calls. I go testify where I'm needed. I give talks. I write opinion pieces. I do interviews like I'm doing with you. I try to educate the public as best as I can. What was it? Last year, I went and testified before Congress against red flag laws, which a lot of people, they think, oh my gosh, how can that be? You're a victim of a violent crime. Your husband was murdered right in front of you by a stalker. Somebody like you should be all for red flag laws. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And I had to explain, and it made perfect sense to Congress. The Democrats didn't even question me. They stayed away from me. But
now, when you're talking about red flag law, that's a really broad term, but most specific is the most common form the gun violence restraining orders? Is that the specific proposal that they're talking about?
No, Congress, the Democrats are wanting to incentivize more and more states to take on their own red flag laws, and I don't want to see that expanded at all, because it's unconstitutional. Due process does not happen first. Your rights are taken from you first. You're guilty automatically right up front. And somehow you've got to prove that you're innocent. And that's not the way it's supposed to work in this country. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. And we already have laws. And I explained this to Congress. We already have laws on the books right now that would address these issues with, mental health, people that are perceived to be dangerous. You're concerned someone's dangerous. Florida has a law on the books. It's called the Baker Act, but
Yeah.
it's basically an involuntary commitment type law. Every state has it. They call it different things in different states, but it's pretty much the same. And it's available in every state. And if you truly believe that someone is a danger to themselves or others, and you have proof of that, then you know what? You can go before a judge and provide that proof, and then they can put that person on a 72-hour hold. A mental health expert is actually involved. That's not the case with red flag laws. And they evaluate the person, and they determine, does this person truly have a problem? Are they dangerous? And then the person goes before a judge. And that judge will make a determination based on the facts whether this person needs to be committed. Is this person dangerous? Do they need, to go to outpatient treatment? Should they have guns taken away from them? But that due process happens before you lose your rights. And we can be using these laws right now. I don't understand why people feel the need to, expand red flag laws. I think it's unconstitutional. It's not fair. And I also explained that it can really have a really horrible negative impact on victims of violent crime.
Tell us about that.
Well, you think about, people that go through horrific, traumatic situations, good people. Are you going to be depressed? Yeah. You know what? That's normal. You would not be normal if you were not depressed, is what I would say. That's a natural human reaction. Are you going to have whatever people call PTSD, trauma, stress? Yeah, you are. It doesn't automatically mean that you're a danger to yourself or others. I think it could have a very bad impact on the very people who may need to protect themselves right away. You're a victim of a violent crime. They don't keep these bad guys locked up. These guys are let back out.
So,
Who do you
Nikki,
think their target's going to be?
Nikki, this is Joe. When you point out this kind of, these arguments to the people that are advocating these laws and things, what's the response? I mean, how do they try to justify or rationalize their position like that? Because, a lot of those laws, and especially in your case too, it was just, what happened was just tragic. And these ridiculous gun control laws actually make it more dangerous for more people than anything else. But when you put that logical argument to them, what's the response?
Well, of course, Republicans and libertarians, they agree with me. Democrats stay away from me. They do not want to debate me on that. But I'll point this out too, waiting periods. That one just is so stupid, a waiting period. Okay. In terms of, mass public shooters, people that want to do great harm to many, many people and get a high body bag count. Anyone that has studied the manifestos of these people, because they're out there, these guys write about what they're going to do. They plan this stuff, months in advance, sometimes years in advance. A waiting period is not going to stop them. But I tell you what a waiting period will do. It will prevent a woman who is being stalked, someone who's dealing with a domestic violence situation. She's just left her husband who's abusive or an ex, and she's got to get a gun quickly to protect herself. She's in fear for her life. A waiting period will stop her from being able to get a gun quickly to protect her life and her loved ones.
No, exactly. And, it's interesting you bring that up now because I'm in the middle of my waiting period at this very moment. So it's like, if I wanted to harm somebody with a firearm and apparently I couldn't use one of the 20 firearms I already have, I have to go buy a new one. But then the 10-day waiting period will let me calm down, so that won't happen. But, it's like you're saying, it's these laws endanger people. They don't make it any safer for anybody.
You know why we're particularly focused on red flag laws, why we want you to talk about that, is I don't know if you remember a few years ago in the Huffington Post, I'm pretty sure, there was an op-ed by the city attorney of San Diego where she talked all about expanding red flag laws, and not just in San Diego, but across California and hopefully across the nation. And her name was Mara Elliott. Do you remember that?
No, I can't say I do.
So she's extremely, extremely anti-gun. She's the city attorney here in San Diego, and her right-hand man is a guy named John Hemmerling, and he has been extremely aggressive in expanding the red flag laws, and he's running for sheriff of San Diego County. And he's actually, I know you were talking a lot about the difference between Republicans and Democrats. He is the endorsed candidate for the Republican Party. And his career was basically for the last few years was expanding gun violence restraining orders. It's everything's backwards out here in California, I'll tell you. So that's why we're particularly interested. That's why we wanted you to talk about it. We've been talking about it a lot. He's a catastrophe waiting to happen. We're hoping he's not qualified, so we're hoping that he won't get any traction. But just being endorsed by the Republican Party here in San Diego has at least made him, a possibility, and it's scary. I think the other two leading candidates are Democrats, both pro-gun, both pro-CCW. Definitely have nowhere near the view on red flag laws that the Republican does, that John Hemmerling does. But it's a scary situation. Everything you said is completely accurate. It's a very scary situation.
It is very scary. And people don't stop and think, what better way for an abuser to disarm someone that they want to harm than a red flag law? Think about that. And I'm not saying that it's only women that are victims, but men can also be domestic violence victims and victims of stalking. But in general, the majority of the time, it is women that are stalked and women that are abused in general. But regardless, whoever is being abused, if they have a firearm and let's say they've left their partner, their abusive partner, they've moved, they've got their own apartment, their own house, they're armed now, and their ex that was abusing them who knows they have a gun, well, they can just use a red flag law to disarm them, and then they can harm them, and that person has no way to protect themselves.
Hey, Nikki.
Yes.
Hey, we got to take a small break, but don't you go anywhere, okay?
Okay.
About me. Hey, we're really proud to partner with the National Concealed Carry Association as a 10-ring partner. NCCA exists to serve the Second Amendment community by providing nationwide network of two-way advocates. They offer elite self-defense and concealed carry training from the nation's top instructors. They provide rock-bottom prices on the best selection of gear and accessories. Join them today. Members get great prices, free shipping. You can learn a whole lot more. Just go to nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com.
Okay, we're talking to Nikki Goeser from the what's the exact name? The Crime Prevention Research Center. John Lott and his work. She's the executive director, and having a great conversation with her. I really, really appreciate it. I want you to talk about your story in here just a couple minutes, but I wanted to ask you a couple questions. First off, do you carry every day?
Yes, absolutely.
You carry every single day. All right. Well, my co-host here, Action Jackson's got a question for you. He's got a question for you. Go for it, Jackson.
What's your favorite gun?
Oh, my favorite gun?
Yep.
That's a tough one because my favorite gun is not a gun that you would actually carry on you every day for self-defense. My favorite gun is my Henry Golden Boy lever action 22 rifle.
Nice. You're the second person.
My favorite gun.
You're the second person we've asked today, and the second person that picked a 22 caliber. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a fun plinking gun. I love it.
What part?
It's pretty accurate too.
I forget which part of the country are you in?
I'm in Tennessee.
You're in Tennessee, so it's easy to get a carry license in Tennessee, right?
Yeah, and we actually just passed constitutional carry. So this year we've started carrying without permits. Of course, I've got my permit, and I'll continue to have one because I travel a lot, and I need it for reciprocity purposes. But, I feel like, I struggled. I'm going to be honest with you. And some people might kind of cringe about this, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. There for a while,
yeah,
I actually struggled with the whole constitutional carry thing because in my mind at the time, I'm thinking, gosh, training is so important. And what if people start carrying and they don't really understand gun safety? And, it could just be a huge hot mess. And the more I thought about this, I thought, what other rights do you have to pay the government for? Like, you should not have to pay the government for a permit so that you can carry. You don't have to pay the government anytime you want to speak. You don't have to pay the government when you want to vote. I mean, you should be able to carry. And it took a while for me to actually accept constitutional carry. But I do now because I feel like we have the right to protect ourselves. It is our Second Amendment right, and it's the one right that protects all other rights. And you should not have to pay the government in order to take part in that right.
So,
Do I think that you need training? Yes, absolutely. But that is something that you should do on your own as a responsible, law-abiding citizen. Get the training. Know what you're doing. Understand the laws on justifiable use of force, on self-defense, because you can get yourself in a world of trouble if you don't know what you're doing.
So Nikki, I went through the same thing. I took a little different direction on it because I wrote about that a couple of months ago, and we had Chris Chang from Top Shot, and then we had Ursula Williams. They were both on the show. She's a competitive shooter from Arizona, and I had mentioned, I was writing about I think constitutional carry, and I mentioned that reservation, and it was exactly the same thing about the training. And because, I teach that stuff, I write about it all the time, and I'm real big on training. And my fear is that, okay, constitutional carry, people won't understand the laws necessarily, and there's a danger, they can get themselves in trouble. And both Chris and Ursula, immediately jumped on it and said the same thing, basically. They said it's not the state's responsibility to take care of these people and make sure they do what they're supposed to do. You're supposed to be responsible. If you're going to carry a gun, it's up to you to do the things that you need to do. And I discovered that, I probably felt that way. I just didn't know I felt that way. But I had reservations too until that day in the studio, and now I'm pretty much on board with it. I don't have those reservations anymore.
Yeah, and I think at least Dr. Lott. I'm not the statistics expert that he is, but
who is?
According to Dr. Lott, these states that have passed constitutional carry, they actually see more people getting permits just because they want the training and they want the permit for reciprocity.
It is important. It is important. We teach people how to get their CCWs here in San Diego. And we spend a significant portion of the seminar pushing the idea of how important it is to get the training, not necessarily the marksmanship, but learning the laws, learning the legalities and ethics of lethal force, that kind of stuff. That's what's really important.
Oh, absolutely. Let me tell you, my firearms trainer, I actually got my handgun carry permit back in April of 2008. And my trainer, he was ex-law enforcement. He was actually on the bomb squad. He was kind of a little bit scary, but really cool, if that makes any sense.
That's how I describe Jackson here. So, yeah, it makes sense.
He scared the crap out of us in class. He would show us really horrible, awful videos of really horrible, awful things that can happen.
Jeez.
And he would show us different scenarios of self-defense and shoot, don't shoot scenarios. And he'll stop the video and say, okay, do you think the guy had the right to shoot that person? And we're like, well, no, that was like murder. And then he shows you a different angle of the camera. He replays it, and he's like, actually, he was totally justified, and here's why. So you have to be real careful about what you see on the news, too, because sometimes they don't tell the whole story.
What? Are you serious, Nikki?
That almost sounds like they're almost hiding something.
I know, right? or like they're pushing a narrative. They're trying to get you to believe something that, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what is the big what are you guys attempting to do? I guess if you had to sum up, like, hey, our organization wants to accomplish this or wants to be this, how would you describe it? You guys, endlessly interesting information. I've met Dr. Lott before. I've listened to his lectures. I've read his books. Great guy, great information. But what exactly is the organization looking to, trying to do?
Well, I can tell you what I'm trying to do.
Sure.
I can't speak for John, but I can tell you that from my point of view, we're trying to educate the public and legislators, lawmakers around the country so that they understand that gun ownership is not bad. Legal, law-abiding people, good people owning guns, and being able to protect themselves and their loved ones, it has an effect. And it means that there's less crime and there's less victims, and that's meaningful. And unfortunately, the mainstream media, they fail to tell the public the truth. And so many of these mass public shootings, it's like 94% of these mass public shootings happen in gun-free zones. They're not going to tell the public that, but there are places where no one can carry to protect themselves. These people are sitting ducks.
That's a crazy high statistic. 94% is that's not an accident. Like, that's, it's.
But Nikki, if you were going to go shoot, where would you shoot? You would shoot in an area where
They weren't going to shoot back.
they're not going to shoot back. And our government hasn't quite figured that out yet.
Well, let me tell you how gun control impacted my life. Back in 2009, my husband, Ben, was murdered right in front of me by a man who was stalking me. And at the time, in the state of Tennessee, you were not allowed to carry a firearm into any restaurant if they also served alcohol. So I followed that law, and I left my legal, permitted firearm that I normally carried for self-defense locked inside of my vehicle that night. My stalker, who did not have a permit to carry, brought a gun in to a gun-free zone in the middle of a busy restaurant. When I asked management to please remove him because I realized I was being stalked, he shot my husband in the head. He then stood over Ben and continued to fire 6 more rounds into him in front of myself, all the patrons, and security cameras. I will probably wonder for the rest of my life if I could have prevented that. Of course, I'll never know because I was denied a chance. I was stalked and defenseless. So I've just tried to educate people as best as I can about the real dangers of gun-free zones.
I've heard your story before. I've heard you tell it before, and it never
gets easy.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. I'm so sorry that happened to you, and I truly wish for peace, because I know but this is the first time we've ever spoke. But again, I've heard your story many times, and that's the first thing that goes through my head is that for the rest of your life you're going to wonder, and I truly hope that you find peace.
Yeah, I would like to find peace myself, but unfortunately, my stalker is not allowing that. He has continued to stalk me. He's just doing it from prison now.
Jeez.
For many, many years, he has been sending twisted love letters, and the feds actually just charged him last year. And he's got to go to federal court. He's facing federal stalking charges now. It's an additional 5 years in a federal prison if he's convicted, which he will be.
Yeah.
How long is he in for now? What would that be a total?
Unfortunately, it was a bench trial. There was no jury. And even after hearing all of the overwhelming evidence proving first-degree premeditated murder, the judge dropped it to second degree. He only got 23 years, and he's been allowed early release credit. So he's going to be released in less than 7 years now.
No, I'm so sorry to hear that. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing. Thank you so much. How can people find your organization and support you?
You can find us at crimeresearch.org. And my book is called Stalked and Defenseless, You can purchase that at Amazon or at Barnes & Noble online.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, you just amazing job. Thank you very much for taking time out of your day calling in, and we wish you.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.